Tell us about when you got kidnapped in Colombia. What was that story?
Okay, so I blame my wife. Yeah, so right now I blame my wife. I was in Liberia, which I told you about, which was very gory. You know, my gunmen gave me a severed head after a battle. There are people eating things that they shouldn't eat. And there's just a lot of shooting, a lot of dead people, okay? I filmed it all. Bring it back, give it to Discovery. They edited it. And to their credit, they ran it. And it was like, holy shit. Like that's on TV. It's like one of these like 60s French movies, like Mondo Cane. But I said, that's what's happening right now in the country that we created, Liberia, right? They're literally, they have what looks like the American flag. They have the Pledge of Allegiance. These people are waiting for American to save them. So my wife says, man, you tweaked. I said, no, I'm not tweaked. That's how it is in that place. Other people looked at it like, damn, man, you got to, jeez, you know? And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, well, you work for National Geographic. You should do a hiking and camping story. And I said, I hate hiking and camping. Ever since I went to this survival boarding school. Yeah. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I said, I get it. Maybe I should just like shift a little bit into the old expedition stuff I used to do, right? So I always wanted to do the Darien Gap. When I was 19, I hitchhiked from Vancouver down to South America, to Panama specifically. And at that time, this was in 75, you could hike the Darien Gap. It's just, it was dangerous and people warned you off. And I was running out of money. And I thought, do I hike the Darien Gap or do I go live on a tropical island? I'm like, let me think about that for a second. I go, okay, I'm going to live on a tropical island. So I went to San Andreas, which is a big drug smuggling center. And I broke people out of jail. And I really enjoyed myself. And I did that. But I didn't do the Darien Gap. So I went to my editor at National Geographic Adventure and said, okay, I want to find 2 young people who want to hike the Gap. I'm going to be like the old burnt out adventure guy. They're going to be the young, adventure people. And we'll talk about why we do what we do. Yeah. What's adventure, why the risk, blah, blah, blah. It's a brilliant idea, actually. I get there, I find 2 people who had no intention of hiking the Darien Gap, but when they saw me doing it, they go, oh, I'm going with Robert. So they were 22, 23. And we start off, and they literally fly a helicopter out to stop us. Like the Panamanian police fly a helicopter and say, what are you doing? And then they go, oh, it's that guy, So I say, look, I've talked to the leaders of the FARC. I interviewed all of them. I told them I was coming. I talked to the leaders of the death squads, Carlos Castaño. I set up an interview with him. I'm pretty comfortable that I know all the groups here, that if I run into them, they can vouch for me. Well, 2 days in, there was an ambush, and they killed an Indian guide, not our guide, but a guy that was on the path. And we had a decision to make, and I said, I'm going to walk into the ambush. I'm pretty comfortable with ambushes, and I know what to do and whatever. And they're like, cool. And I'm like, no, it's not cool at all. It's like really dicey because
it's the best bad decision.
You're going to be... yes, exactly. I said, we can turn around, but they're going to see our footprints. We're in the jungle, right? And we could go down into the wilderness, but I don't think you guys are going to find your way out. We were deep in the jungle, right? And I said, I'm going to walk into the ambush. You stay about 500 yards, 200 yards behind. Talk really loud in English. When they start shooting, if I roll left, you roll right. And then you can run away, right? But I think if I can make contact with these people, I can find out who they are, what happened, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I did. And they were all jacked up because they just, ambushed these guys and tell us, put our hands up, put our hands down, do this. And of course, everybody bunched up. And they wanted to execute our guide. And I said, no, you can't. I said, why? I said, because I'm with the Discovery Channel. I'm with National Geographic. And these people know these brands, which is hilarious. And you'll be on trial for war crimes, which is a ballsy thing to do when you're at gunpoint in the jungle. And we sat there with their hands on our head and, on their knees. And this guy comes up and he gets on a log and he starts making a speech about, we're the FARC, we're here to liberate the people, blah, blah, all this bullshit. And I could see that his shirt was on backwards, inside out, right? And when I had walked up to this ambush site, it said clearly on it, AUC Beck, which is the oldest death squad in Colombia. So I knew they were death squad. So this is really strange. And so I said to Mark and Meg, do not speak Spanish. Do not give them any indication you can speak Spanish. Just be stupid. And Mark, bless his pointed little head, got really friendly with them, but they were bullshitting him about being leftist guerrillas, and they were not. They were right-wing death squads.
Yeah.
And they went past us, and they murdered all these people at a village we'd stayed in, and we were walked at gunpoint towards Colombia. And my point is that they couldn't communicate with their leaders because we were so deep in the jungle. So their radios didn't go all the way to their headquarters down south. So anyway, when we got to the south, they made us sleep in the middle of a soccer patch, and they had like 5 guys in each corner with their guns on us, which I thought was kind of weird. And then they took us into a graveyard in the morning. I said, this is not working out the way it's supposed to.
Not looking good.
And they took Mark away. And I said, oh, if I hear a gunshot, that means that they just shot him, right? And I said, but I don't think they're going to shoot him because we've been walking for so long. It's kind of weird, right? So he disappears, and then they come for Meg. I said, no, we'll go together. There's no reason. They're like, no. I just argued with them. I said, no, fuck you. We're going to go together. And so I kind of walked real slow. Oh, I got to tie my shoe up. I got to do this. And they didn't seem to care. So I thought, okay, they're not nervous about me kind of lagging behind. So I come into the riverbed, and there's Mark in the middle of all these old guys. It's like beautiful riverbed, like stones and water flowing, and all these horses with like silver decorated saddles. And Mark is chain smoking. Like, he doesn't smoke, but he's puffing on a cigarette, and all these guys are laughing. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And Mark, they're not going to shoot us, Robert. And I'm like, yeah, they're not going to shoot us. They're actually the death squads. They're not FARC. And I'm like, yeah, that's right, Mark. That's right. That's what I've been telling you for 10 days. So they realized that they'd captured this guy, and Carlos Castaño knew who we were. Carlos actually sent a press release out to Reuters saying we were being held for our safety, which is kind of BS.
Yeah.
But they then kidnapped us again because they wanted me, when they found out that I was working for Discovery, they wanted me to interview their leader, whose name was Commander Alaman, which is not like the Nazis, just because I like to be on time.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not in the mood to interview anyone. And he brought this big fat guy with a red cross on his T-shirt. And he said, that's our human rights director. I said, oh, so that's the guy that decides whether you use chainsaws or rocks to smash people's heads in?
Yeah, human rights director for the death squads.
Yeah, exactly. And I just this is irony defined. And really, I don't want to interview you. I have no interest in promoting your whatever it is you want me to do. And then they all lined up. There's 176 of them in this horrible little abandoned finca, this ranch that we were being held in. And they all came by and shook my hand and then, cheered and smiled. And then there was this priest. And this priest took us into town. And I said, I just want a good meal. I want a cold beer. I want a good steak. And I don't want to eat too much. And I don't want to drink too much. I just want to sleep. Just sleep, without insects or anything. So anyway, at the end of the day, we got sort of kidnapped by the military, who insisted I had to go to the embassy, and they wanted me to press charges. And I'm like, no. I said, when these guys come for me with a little axe, you're not going to be there. And this is their war. It's not my war. I'm the guy that went for a hike in the middle of their military operation. And that's just the way. If you want me to press murder charges, yes, I met with these people. They went and murdered all these people that we had met with. So anyway, that was what happens when I go hiking and camping.
Which is why you don't like to hike and camp.